On the morning of July 31st, 1761, the French merchant vessel L'Udel cuts through the choppy waters of the Indian Ocean, her hull groaning under the weight of human cargo. Captain Jean de Lafargue stands on the bridge, scanning the horizon as his ship approaches what should be a routine destination. Below deck, 160 African men, women, and children are crammed into suffocating quarters, their lives reduced to mere commodities in France's illegal slave trade. The ship's 140 French crew members go about their duties, unaware that within hours, everything will change forever. Navigator Barthélemy Castellan Duvernay checks his instruments one final time. The journey from Madagascar's Foul Point to Mauritius should take just 6 days. It's a route they've sailed before. But tonight, as storm clouds gather on the horizon, L'Udel is sailing toward a collision that will strand dozens of people on one of the most desolate places on Earth. And for some, it will become a prison that lasts 15 years. The ship strikes the coral reef surrounding Tromelin Island with devastating force. In the chaos that follows, the vessel's hull splits open, sending torrents of seawater into the lower decks where the enslaved Africans are chained. Most drown in the darkness below, but 60 manage to escape through a gaping hole torn in the ship's side. Above, 120 French sailors and officers abandon ship, clinging to debris as they fight their way through crashing waves to the island's shore. As dawn breaks over Tromelin, 180 survivors find themselves marooned on a flat, barren strip of land barely 1.7 kilometers long and 700 meters wide. There are no trees, no fresh water, no shelter. Just sand, coral, and the endless expanse of ocean that has become their prison. The French crew immediately takes charge, ordering the African survivors to salvage whatever they can from the wreckage. Despite the dangerous waters teeming with sharks, the enslaved men and women dive repeatedly into the surf, retrieving food, tools, and materials that will determine who lives and who dies in the coming days. Captain Lafargue rations the meager supplies, dried meat, flour, bread, and a small amount of fresh water. For 180 people, it won't last a week. By the third day, desperation sets in as the water runs out. Some begin drinking seawater, hastening their own deaths. But the African survivors, drawing on generations of knowledge about survival in harsh environments, begin digging in the center of the island. Hours of backbreaking labor reveal what saves them all: a lens of fresh water, filtered through layers of sand and coral. For 2 months, the survivors work together, building shelters from salvaged materials and catching fish and seabirds. But the French crew has a plan that doesn't include their African companions. Using timber from the wrecked L'Udel, they construct a new vessel, La Providence. When it's ready, all 120 French survivors board the makeshift ship, leaving the 60 Africans behind with a promise: "We will return. We will definitely take you away from here." La Providence disappears over the horizon on a journey that should take for days. The African survivors watch from the shore, marking time by scratching lines in the sand. Days turn to weeks, weeks turn to months. The promised rescue never comes. What the castaways don't know is that La Providence barely made it to Madagascar. Disease ravaged the crew during the voyage, and when the survivors finally reached the governor, they were met with cold indifference. This entire operation was illegal, he declared. "You were transporting slaves unlawfully. Now I cannot send any ship." The war had depleted his fleet, and he had no intention of risking resources for people who shouldn't have been enslaved in the first place. Back on Tromelin, the abandoned survivors face a terrible reality. They arrange stones on the beach to spell help. They build signal fires. They scan the horizon every day for ships that never come. And slowly, they begin to understand they are truly alone. What happens next defies every assumption about human endurance. The 60 survivors don't just survive, they build a functioning society. They organize themselves into work groups, with some managing the precious freshwater well, others constructing fish traps from coral and salvaged metal, and still others maintaining their shelters against the constant assault of wind and salt spray. They develop ingenious methods for catching food. Stonefish traps channel incoming waves, creating pools where fish become stranded at low tide. They use turtle blood as bait and dry their catch in the sun, creating stores for lean periods. Every piece of driftwood becomes precious building material. Every raindrop is captured and conserved. 3 weeks after being abandoned, 20 of the strongest survivors attempt their own escape. They build a small raft from wreckage and set sail for Madagascar, promising those left behind that they'll return with help. They vanish into the ocean and are never seen again. The remaining 40 people settle into a rhythm of survival that will define the next decade and a half. They bury their dead in the sand, marking graves with coral stones. They maintain their signal fires and continue their daily watch for rescue ships. Children are born, adults grow old, some lose hope and simply stop eating, choosing death over endless waiting. Meanwhile, thousands of kilometers away, one of the French survivors from La Providence refuses to forget the people left behind. For 11 years, he writes letters, sends petitions, and pleads with officials to mount a rescue mission. His persistence finally pays off when a new governor agrees to attempt a rescue. The first mission fails. The ship's captain, seeing the treacherous reefs that claimed Liudel, refuses to risk his vessel and crew. The survivors on Tromelin watch the ship appear on the horizon, then disappear again, taking their hopes with it. But on November 29, 1776, 15 years, 3 months, and 29 days after Liudel first struck the reef, the French ship La Dauphine approaches Tromelin Island. Captain Jacques-Marie Boudet de Tromelin navigates carefully through the coral maze and sends boats to shore. What his crew finds defies belief. Of the 60 people abandoned in 1761, only 7 women and 1 small child remain alive. They emerge from their sand shelters like ghosts, carrying the few possessions they've managed to preserve through 15 years of isolation. Their freshwater well still functions. Their fish traps still catch food, their signal fires still burn. The women board La Dauphine in silence, clutching the child who was born on the island and has never known any other world. As the ship sails away from Tromelin, they leave behind a graveyard of coral markers and the ruins of a society that survived against impossible odds. The 7 women and the child are taken to Mauritius, where they're granted their freedom. A bitter irony, since they should never have been enslaved in the first place. The child is given a name and an education. The women are provided with homes and support, but nothing can restore the 15 years stolen from them or bring back the 53 people who died waiting for a rescue that almost never came. The story of Tromelin Island reveals the brutal mathematics of survival and the devastating human cost of the slave trade. It's a testament to the resilience of people who refused to surrender, even when the world had abandoned them. And it stands as a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary acts of human endurance happen in places so remote that the world forgets they exist at all. The island that became their prison for 15 years now bears the name of their rescuer, Tromelin Island. But for those who lived and died there, it will always be remembered as the place where 60 people were forgotten by the world, yet never forgot their determination to survive.